And finally, with Leeds, since we last spoke, Leeds have officially been promoted to the Premier League for next season. But if anything, that's actually stirred up the discussion of Daniel Farke's future even more. I'd like both of you, just off the top of your head, if you both believe that Daniel Farke will be Leeds manager to start the Premier League season next year.
I think he will. Obviously, it's not great seeing these rumours that he could potentially be sacked due to the club having fears over his record in the Premier League previously when he was at Norwich. But I think you've got to give him this summer transfer window. You've got to give him the chance to lead his team in the Premier League again. I'm sure he will have learnt a lot during his time at Norwich in the Premier League, but he's at a different beast in Leeds. He will be confident, I'm sure, with the backing that he will get at Leeds United, everything else that he could, and keep that club in the Premier League next season as well. Bit of a different story at Norwich. I don't think they spent loads of money when he did win promotion with the Canaries to the Premier League, so it was always an uphill task. But you got Leeds United, Elland Road, such a huge fan base. I think with the right recruitment in the summer, I think Daniel Farke could definitely ensure Premier League safety and help establish Leeds as a Premier League club again. It won't be easy because we know the record of promoted teams when they come up from the Championship to the Premier League. I think the last 6 have all suffered relegation straight away in the following season, so history might be against them. But I don't know, I think there's a togetherness in that squad, maybe more so than last season at Leeds. Obviously they had a number of top players in the squad last year, the likes of Somerville and Archie Gray obviously were sold after they failed to win promotion in the playoff final. But I just think there's a real togetherness in that squad. It obviously needs improving if they are to stay up, so I think for me Farke deserves a chance to lead them in the Premier League.
Paul, thoughts?
1,000,000% he will be in charge of Leeds at the start of next season. My own opinion, if you succeed in any job, in any walk of life, you deserve to prove yourself at the next level. If you succeed and get promotion, you get promoted for a reason, because you're capable of doing the job and you get the opportunity to prove yourself at that level. That's my own personal opinion. If you haven't heard it, the chairman, Parag Marath, 2023-24, did an interview. We don't hear from him a lot, Leeds United chairman. You need to go in the archives and dig it out. Spoke about Daniel Farke, spoke about him potentially being one of Europe's best coaches, and he wasn't given the opportunity. Daniel Farke has a 12% win record in the Premier League, one of the lowest ever for a Premier League manager. But according to Parag Marath, don't quote me exactly, but the quotes were he didn't have the right deck. We will give him that deck. We will give him the right hand. The chairman and the club are behind the manager. They back the manager. He said this 2 years ago, that he trusts his manager. He thinks he's got a great relationship with the players. He's got a great way of playing football, and he believes that his manager can succeed at the top level given the right support. In his words, the right deck, the right hand. He put a relation to cards, and you look back, dig up the interview, and it's quite damning. And then you compare that to some of the reports now about Daniel Farke potentially being replaced. Look at those quotes from the chairman 2 years ago. There's absolutely no way he's sacking Daniel Farke. He's backing him because he believes in his manager. He believes the previous times it was in the Premier League at lesser clubs, to be completely honest, at lesser clubs, without the backing, without the funding, without the players, he didn't succeed because the support network around him wasn't there. He said 2 years ago that he will give him what he needs to succeed in the Premier League because he believes in him as a manager. And now we'll get that opportunity probably till about Christmas. That's what that's what football's like. He'll back him and he'll give him that opportunity until Christmas. But there's one thing that he said: Daniel Farke will be in charge next season. If you take a parallel to the quotes that the chairman said 2 years ago, he will be in charge, he will be backed, and he will have a better opportunity to succeed at the top table.
Well, let's pretend neither of you said no. Who would be the favourite to be the Leeds manager next season if it's not Daniel Farke?
Pete's in.
I'll throw my hat into the ring. It's close by, it's local. I'll go for the Leeds job. But no, in all seriousness, it'd be so harsh on Daniel Farke to lose his job. But like Paul says, he'll be given to at least Christmas before the January transfer window, and if Leeds are at the wrong end of the table struggling, then he could lose his job. But you've got to give him the opportunity in the first half of the season to see what he can do with the squad and with the right recruitment, to see if he can get things right. Jose Mourinho is the name that's been bandied around. Again, that would be box office if it was to happen, if he was to return to the Premier League with Leeds United. Leeds United fans probably maybe a bit sceptical of that, but I'm sure they would be excited at the prospect of Jose leading their team out of Elland Road. But I think the fans are behind Daniel Farke as well. He's done a good job to get them up. But Mourinho, he's never hidden his desire to come back to England. I'm sure he'd be in the frame if a job at Leeds did become available. And then you'd have other people. I'm sure you've got other people who are out of work who would be mentioned in that Leeds job. Stephen Gerrard's been mentioned in the past as well. Looks like he's looking to come back into management. Lee Carsley, who's had a spell as England manager, the under-21s manager, very highly rated. I'm sure he would also potentially be in the frame. But right now, I think it's a bit harsh to be talking about potential new managers of Leeds when they've got a manager in place, and a manager that I would hope, and most people I think would hope, would be given that opportunity next season.
We'll be having this conversation if 10, 12 games into next season they're in the bottom three like the bottom three are this year. I mean, it shows you now, looking at the Premier League table, right, bring the Premier League table up, the bottom three, they've been appalling this year. Apart from Ipswich have had a go. They've had a puncher's chance this year. So, above the bottom three, West Ham, Tottenham, Wolves, Manchester United, Everton. None of those would you ever think, maybe Wolves would be threatened with relegation. That's the point I'm making, is that's how hard the Premier League is to break into. So the bottom four, West Ham, Tottenham, Wolves, Manchester United, you've got to break into that to stay in the Premier League. It's huge now that the gap is getting bigger and bigger. And you see the bottom three, West Ham 36 points, Ipswich 21. Relegation was done a month ago. So the gap between the Championship and the Premiership is massive. And you look in the Championship, you look at what Leeds, Sheffield United and Burnley have done to the rest of the Championship. You look at the gap there. Sheffield United are going to finish third. They're 20 points ahead of Coventry, who are in the playoffs, and they still might not make the Premier League. So the gap between the top three in the Championship, the rest of the Championship, and then to break into that closed shop which is the Premier League, it's huge. It really is. Recruitment has to be so clever next year.
Do you remember when 40 points used to be the marker to make you safe? You don't need 40 points anymore in the Premier League.
Well, this year, what do you need? 20, 25, 28?
Yep.
If that?
Probably. That shows that golf.
It's a good thing you don't need 40 points anymore.
always
Otherwise,
the benchmark,
Tottenham and Manchester United would be going down.
Tottenham potentially could finish 17th. Manchester
So
United
could
14th.
Manchester United. They could
Two
both
massive
easily finish
clubs
17th.
whose whole season hinges on the Europa League. And they can't both win it, so we're going to be talking about one of them in crisis next week after, whenever. I'd love to see a Tottenham Man United final. Going to Bilbao next week. I've got the Man United game again. I think they keep sending me to watch Man United. I don't know why.
You might go to the final then, mate, if they get there.
No, with a bit of luck, yeah, fingers crossed.
And Pete, Leeds on the player transfer side are looking to be pursuing mostly players with Premier League experience, a little bit different recruitment than what they went for last time they were in the Premier League. Would Thomas Souček fit the bill?
Yeah, I think he'd be a good option if Leeds are going to go down that path of trying to bring in more Premier League experienced players into their squad. Again, might be a difficult deal to do, although he has lost his place in the West Ham starting 11 in recent weeks under Graham Potter. I still think he has a lot to offer West Ham. He's under contract until 2027. He's got 7 goals and 2 assists in 30 Premier League appearances this season. That's not bad for a midfielder. I think that's a decent record. And we know how effective he is in both boxes. He's a real goal threat, any set piece that West Ham have. And he's good defensively as well when they are defending their own penalty area as well. Look, he's 30 years old now. Maybe West Ham are looking to phase him out and maybe reduce the overall age of their squad as well. But if he was to come available, he would be an ideal signing for Daniel Farke, because he's I think he's a top pro. He always gives his all. He must be a nightmare to play against as well.
Right, with 2 years left on his deal, what would he cost?
2 years left on his deal, I think you could get him for 10 to 15 million, something like that. I think that's not bad value. Again, his age would probably put off a lot of clubs turning 30, but I still think I think he's a great pro. He puts his body on the line. He's got great stamina. Maybe not always pleasing on the eye, but he's effective. There's no doubt about that. And if Leeds do want the right characters in their squad next season to stay up, there's no doubt that Thomas Souček would fit the bill in that one. But again, I think if he does become available at West Ham and he does seek a move away from the London Stadium this summer, I think there'll be a few clubs interested in, especially David Moyes at Everton, because he was so good for Moyes at West Ham. I'm sure David Moyes would be more than happy to bring him to Bramley Moor next season at Everton's new stadium, because he knows what he can bring to the table. So Leeds probably might have it a tough job to try and sign him if Everton were to make a move for him as well.